How do we deadlift? All movements at Super Training Gym, the big three, bench, squat, deadlift, we always utilize the barbell to get ourselves in position. When you deadlift, you want to try to, the first thing you want to establish is where we're going to stand. If you are not super flexible, not very mobile, then you are going to want to have some distance between you and the barbell so that when your knees travel forward, that when you go to pick the weight up, you're not kicking the barbell forward. Okay? So that's if you're not very mobile. You want to stand with a little bit more room. You might be 6 to 8 inches away from the bar. If you're more mobile, you might want to creep right up on the bar because you'll be able to squat down in this really excellent position and you'll be able to pull from there without kicking the barbell forward. For me, I'm not very mobile, so when I look down at my foot, when I gaze down at my foot, I see that my foot is kind of almost being chopped in half by the bar. So number one thing we have to do, we got to establish our positioning. If we were to go sumo, sumo is different. With sumo deadlifting, you're trying to have your legs swallow up the bar so that it's like turning a deadlift into like a kettlebell deadlift so that we don't have this weight in the way anymore of our legs, because that's the whole challenge of a deadlift. So it's almost like you're just trying to pick something up that would be in the middle of you. And we do so by getting super duper pooper scooper close to the barbell. So in a sumo, in the instance of sumo, in most cases, almost for everybody, you want to get really close to the bar to the point where you're almost touching the bar. And that's why we got these guys here to join in the fun. Sorry about the dry legs, dry ashy legs. But we have the scars right there from years of deadlift and sumo and having that deadlift bar catch us when we're about to pull the weight up. Next thing we need to do, we're going to do something called a hip hinge. I like to just bend over at the waist and just, I don't mind having my back be kind of like rounded because we're going to straighten all that out in a minute. So establish your foot position. We're going to hinge at the hips. Next thing we need to do, we need to work on getting our back flat. So I like to work on getting my back flat from here. So we're going to get the back flat by pulling on the bar and trying to pull our shoulder blades down a little bit. From here, we're now going to pull our hips down, and we want to have our hips lower than our shoulders. You want your hips lower than your shoulders. Before I go into that, I forgot to mention to get your stomach tight. So let me back up a second. Establish your position, hip hinge. When you're ready to start to go, you want to get your air, and then we're going to go from there. So there's kind of 3 movements that happen pretty quickly there. We're getting our air, we're going to flatten out the back, and we're going to get our hips lower than our shoulders. Getting your hips lower than your shoulders, you'll find to be fairly difficult for some of you. We want to get our air, get tight. And the reason why I didn't talk was because I'm holding that air, keeping a lot of pressure in the stomach. When you get your breath of air, you want to push your stomach outward against your legs, or in some cases against your lifting belt. So if you all can join me for a second, I want you to bend down like this. Just let your arms just completely hang and be as folded over as you can possibly be. Don't even think about deadlifting for a second. And I just want you to take as much air into your stomach as you can. And I want you to push your stomach, even if you're not fat. I wear like size 35, 34 pants, so I'm not fat. I don't have a big giant waist. But even if you're thinner than me, skinnier than me, you should be able to have the crease of your stomach touch your thighs. And when you do so, when you're down in this position, you should be able to take a nice deep breath and have your whole body rise up because you're making your stomach as hard as a rock. And now we have a support system to pull off of once we start to go, okay? So here we go. You're down here like this. Big ass air. And then once you're there, you want to kind of clamp down almost like a poop, but be careful because that's the last rule is don't shit your pants. And that should probably be the first rule. Be really careful of that. Things can happen. I've been in this game for a long time and we've seen it happen. I got a few more reps to do, so I'm going to go through all those steps each time. For me personally, I like to have my toes pointed out a little bit. That's just a preference. Everybody's a little bit different with that. So find what feels good to you. I personally also like to roll the bar towards me as I pull. I put my hips up high. I'm out of practice with the deadlift, so this position right now kind of sucks. My hamstrings aren't that mobile. I'm going to get my air. I'm going to flatten my back. I'm going to bring my hips lower than my shoulders. I'm going to try to look up, or I will look up, and I'm going to do a deadlift. So here we go. And then we celebrate with a backflip. Maybe not. I'm going to do a set of about 5, and I'm going to do separate repetitions again just because I'm a little out of practice with deadlifting. So I like to come down the same way that it came up, ideally, rather than like just completely falling to the ground. So I'm going to try to come down a little bit better on this one. There we go, 2 reps. Came down a little too fast on that one, especially towards the bottom. I want to try to, like, it's hard with deadlifting because there's not really a negative component to it, but I personally feel that if you control the negative, you'll be stronger, and it's a good way to train. Rep number 3. There we go, that's perfect. That felt good. Last rep. There we go. Sumo deadlift, rules are the same. We want to get a good stance. Remember, you want to get a little closer to the bar than you would with a conventional deadlift. So sumo deadlift, and get it right up on the bar. We want to really try to force the knees out the best that we can. So I like to force the knees out a little bit here. Then I'll hip hinge down to the bar. And now I'm going to use the bar just like I did on the conventional deadlift to get myself into position. I'm going to get some air. First of all, I'm going to lift my hips while I'm holding onto the bar. I'm going to get some air. And I'm going to pull myself down in position, kind of wiggle in there. Once I feel like I'm in a good position, I'm going to come up. I am trying to get the back flat, trying to keep the back flat, and then also get my hips lower than my shoulders. So we're here, legs are straight. I'm going to get my air. I'm going to flatten my back, and I'm going to drop my hips down lower than my shoulders, and then I'm going to pull. One thing that's kind of weird about a sumo deadlift is you can like squeeze your legs and your butt. And when you squeeze your legs and your butt, you can kind of snap the weight. But I think that unless you think about it, you won't really know that you have that ability to do it. Like right there, you can kind of just fuck the bar, drop your head back, drive your hips forward. There's really no better way to explain it than just be blunt about it and explain that. You're just trying to really drive those hips forward. Last one. Let's switch this one up a little bit, try to throw my head back a little bit more. See what we end up with here. Your head's got some weight to it. In this case, this bowling ball head of mine probably weighs about 35 pounds. Once you initiate the weight coming off the ground, and once it gets past like the shins, you want to really think to yourself, what's going to be the best way for me to finish this lift? And the best way is to flex your butt, engage the glutes. When we flex our butt, we can protect our back. You can protect your hamstrings a little bit too. Because if you start to get stuck here or out here on Sumo and your hips are under you, now you're screwed and you lost the ability to even use your butt. You need to be here more, and when it's time to use your ass, start to drive with your butt and flex your quads hard. And this will build up the hammies. This is how we get good hammies. Get some well-developed hamstrings just by doing that on each and every rep. So make sure that you're flexing those legs and flexing your butt at the same time. And also take your head and shove your big fat head and your double chin and your third chin and get them all back behind the barbell. You'll be shocked at how quickly the bar will come up. It will really start to fly. Because a lot of times we get into a position that will kind of look a little bit like you go to pull the weight. A lot of times we start getting in a position like this. You start getting rounded. But if we can kind of initiate it more here, we can use our butt, our legs, we can protect ourselves. And then also with the head, when you start getting here, rather than thinking about this move, which I just did because I have a bad habit of doing that, you want to think about driving your chin back into like the upper part of your neck. Driving your chin, you're just trying to make the craziest double chin that you've ever made in your life. So you go here and double chin. Big chest, like awkwardly trying to make a big chest and really shoving your chin back. Some people might have their head up a little bit. That's totally fine. Some people might have their head down a little bit. Either way is really fine. We're just trying to make sure that we get that chin back, and we're trying to make sure that we're not overextended.